Dr. Sarah Martinez leaned closer to her holoscreen, her weathered fingers tracing the trajectory of a human Marine squad as they engaged the Centaurian shock troops. Something about their movements nagged at her consciousness, a pattern she couldn't quite grasp. The footage, captured during humanity's first interstellar war, played on repeat in her secured laboratory deep within the Galactic Council's Xenobiology Division. Computer, overlay combat effectiveness metrics from the first engagement to the last, she commanded, her voice carrying the authoritative edge developed during her own years in the Marine Corps. The AI complied, and streams of data cascaded across the screen. Her breath caught in her throat. There it is. The numbers told an impossible story. The human squad's combat effectiveness hadn't degraded over the 20-hour battle. It had improved. Significantly. Their reaction times shortened, their tactical coordination enhanced, their weapon accuracy increased. Even their wound recovery rates showed improvement. Computer, is this an isolated incident? She already knew the answer, but scientific protocol demanded verification. Negative, Dr. Martinez. Similar patterns appear in 94.3% of analyzed human combat encounters exceeding 6 hours in duration. Sarah pushed back from her desk, running fingers through her graying hair. After 15 years studying alien species for the Council, she thought she'd seen everything. But this changed everything they thought they knew about combat evolution. The door to her lab hissed open. Council Observer Jensen strode in, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. "Doctor, you requested an urgent meeting." "Tom, look at this," she gestured to the holoscreen. "We've been analyzing human combat wrong. Everyone assumed we were just unusually resilient or technologically adaptive, but it's more fundamental than that." She pulled up side-by-side comparisons of human and alien combat metrics. Every other species in known space shows performance degradation during extended combat. Fatigue sets in, decision-making slows, combat effectiveness drops. She highlighted the human data streams. But humans don't just maintain performance. We improve. We literally evolve during combat itself. Jensen's crystalline structure flickered, a sign of deep disturbance in his species. That's not possible. Combat stress degrades neural pathways. It's a universal constant. Sarah smiled grimly. Universal until now. She switched to footage from the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Watch this platoon. First encounter with energy shields. The soldiers took heavy casualties, their weapons useless against the alien technology. Now watch them 40 minutes later. The same unit had modified their rifles, using improvised electromagnetic pulses to disrupt the shields. They moved with deadly precision, each soldier anticipating and countering alien tactics they'd never encountered before the battle began. "They're not just adapting technology," Sarah explained, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "Their neural patterns are actually reconfiguring under combat stress. Every engagement makes them more efficient, more lethal, and the improvements persist after the battle ends." Jensen's crystalline form had gone completely still. The Council must be informed immediately. "There's more." Sarah pulled up her final analysis. "This isn't a recent evolution. We found evidence of this capability throughout human history. The longer and more desperate the conflict, the more pronounced the combat evolution becomes." She stood, facing the Council Observer directly. "We're not just another warrior species, Tom. We're combat evolution incarnate. Every battle makes us stronger. Every defeat teaches us new ways to kill. And we never, ever forget what we learn." Jensen moved to the communication panel. "This changes everything. The Council's entire strategic doctrine is based on wearing down enemy forces through extended conflict. Which means," Sarah finished quietly, "that every time someone tries to defeat humanity through prolonged warfare, they're actually making us more dangerous." The emergency council alert echoed through her lab as Jensen transmitted her findings. Sarah turned back to her holoscreen, watching humanity's combat evolution play out in cold, hard data. She thought about her years in the Marines, about how every firefight had felt clearer, sharper than the last. They had thought themselves the galaxy's premier warriors because of their technology, their tactics, their determination. But the truth was far more terrifying. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their guns or their ships or their spite. It was their ability to become something more deadly with every shot fired. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber had never felt so cold. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood before the assembled representatives of 37 spacefaring civilizations, her holographic presentation casting an eerie blue glow across their diverse forms. "Distinguished council members," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of her findings. "What I'm about to show you will fundamentally change our understanding of human combat potential." The central display activated, showing Earth's prehistoric savannas. Every species in this chamber evolved in environments that rewarded specific adaptations. The Vardarians developed their crystalline armor. The Nexus gained their hyperspeed reflexes. The Meridians mastered biochemical warfare. She paused, letting the familiar example sink in. But humans, we evolved in an environment that demanded something far more dangerous: constant adaptation itself. The display shifted to show early human hunters facing a mammoth. Other predator species evolved to kill quickly, ambush tactics, overwhelming force, or poison. But humans, she highlighted the primitive spears, the coordinated movements. We became persistence predators. We didn't need to be the strongest or fastest. We just needed to keep going until our prey couldn't. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Martinez advanced the presentation. This is where it gets interesting. Most species stop their combat evolution once they achieve dominance, but Earth never let humans rest. The display showed natural disasters, climate changes, predator attacks. Every time we mastered one threat, our environment presented another. While other species developed specific weapons, claws, fangs, poison, we developed something far more lethal: the ability to turn anything into a weapon. The Vardarian Chancellor leaned forward, their crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. But surely this evolutionary pressure decreased once humans achieved technological advancement. Martinez shook her head. That's what makes humans unique. We internalize the adaptation process. She brought up neural scans. Most species fight using inherited or learned tactics. Humans actively generate new combat solutions during battle itself. We don't just learn from combat, we evolve through it. The chamber erupted in concerned whispers. Martinez pressed on, showing footage from Earth's earliest recorded battles to modern space warfare. Notice the pattern. In every major conflict, human combat effectiveness increases with exposure to enemy tactics. We don't just adapt our technology. Our entire neural architecture reconfigures to process combat information more efficiently. A Meridian representative raised their appendage. Your findings suggest humans actively seek combat to evolve. Yet your species also builds civilizations, creates art, pursues science. How do you reconcile these contradictions? Because, Martinez explained, pulling up new data, we never lost our core adaptation. Turning disadvantages into weapons. The display showed humans using art to coordinate movements, architecture to understand structural weak points, science to enhance combat capabilities. Everything we create eventually serves our evolution as warriors. The council chamber fell silent as Martinez delivered her final revelation. The most crucial finding isn't about our past, it's about our future. She highlighted the neural adaptation rates. Each generation of humans shows faster combat evolution than the last. We're not just deadly because of what we are. We're deadly because of what we're becoming. The High Counselor's voice cut through the tense silence. What are you suggesting, Dr. Martinez? She squared her shoulders, knowing her next words would reshape galactic military doctrine. I'm suggesting that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, our tactics, or even our determination. It's our fundamental nature as beings engineered by evolution itself to become more lethal through combat. The display showed one final image. Children playing war games. Every other species in known space evolved to win fights. Humans evolved to become better at fighting itself, and we never, ever stop evolving. As the council chamber erupted in urgent discussion, Martins watched the representatives' reactions. Some showed fear, others fascination, but all of them finally understood the truth. They weren't just dealing with another warrior species. They were watching the emergence of something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that grew stronger with every attempt to defeat it. A high counselor called for an immediate strategic assessment, but Martinez knew it was already too late. The galaxy had spent centuries wondering how to defeat humanity in combat. They should have been asking how to survive what humanity would become because of it. Again, Dr. Martinez ordered, her voice firm despite the exhaustion evident on her face. The simulation chamber hummed to life, recreating an ancient African savanna. Below, through the observation window, a team of human volunteers prepared for their 48th straight hour of testing. Council Observer Jensen stood beside her, his crystalline form dimmed with concern. "Doctor, your subjects should have collapsed hours ago. Every known species has biological limits." Martinez smiled grimly. "That's exactly what I'm trying to show you." She activated the chamber's environmental controls. "Computer, initiate persistence hunting simulation, maximum difficulty." The chamber's holographic prey materialized, a representation of an ancient antelope species programmed with enhanced stamina and speed. The human team, dressed only in basic clothing and carrying primitive spears, began their pursuit. "Watch their neural patterns," Martinez instructed, pointing to the monitoring displays. Hour after hour, the humans tracked their prey, maintaining a steady pace that kept the animal from resting or cooling down. Their body temperatures remained stable despite the scorching simulated heat. "Impossible," Jensen whispered as the displays showed the humans' cognitive functions actually improving with exhaustion. "Their pattern recognition is increasing. Decision-making speed is accelerating." Martinez nodded. "Now you're seeing it. This isn't just endurance. It's evolution in action." She highlighted their brain chemistry. Other predators evolved to conserve energy, to strike quickly. Humans evolved to push past normal biological limits. We don't just endure, we optimize under pressure. The simulation continued. The humans coordinated without speaking, anticipating their quarry's movements with uncanny accuracy. When the antelope changed tactics, they adapted instantly, cutting off escape routes before they were even attempted. "But modern combat isn't persistence hunting," Jensen argued. "Your enemies have ranged weapons, energy shields, battle computers." Martinez gestured to another chamber where a different team faced advancing combat drones. "The principle remains the same. Watch." The humans, armed with primitive projectile weapons, took heavy casualties in the first engagement, but with each clash, their tactics evolved. They didn't just learn the drone's patterns, they began predicting variations before they occurred. "This is what makes us deadly," Martinez explained. "We don't just learn from combat, we evolve through it. Every engagement rewires our neural pathways for greater combat efficiency." She pulled up comparison data. Other species get slower, less accurate as battles drag on. Humans get faster, more precise, more lethal. The drone simulation reached its 12th hour. The humans had improvised electromagnetic disruptors from their damaged weapons, turning the drone's own systems against them. Their movements had become preternaturally smooth, each action flowing into the next with deadly precision. "Now watch this," Martins said, inputting new commands. The simulation suddenly changed, introducing alien combat forms the humans had never encountered. Without hesitation, the team adapted their tactics, applying learned principles to new threats with devastating effectiveness. Jensen's crystalline structure flickered with distress. "They're not just surviving. They're evolving." Martinez finished. "Every crisis triggers new adaptations. Every defeat teaches new ways to victory." She gestured to the persistence hunters, still pursuing their prey with unwavering determination. We never lost that original drive. The ability to keep going, keep adapting, keep hunting until we win. The antelope simulation finally ended as the exhausted holographic prey collapsed. The humans, despite their 49th straight hour of activity, moved with controlled precision to make their kill. Their neural patterns showed peak combat efficiency. This is why standard military doctrine fails against humans, Martins concluded. The longer you fight us, the more lethal we become. Each engagement isn't just combat, it's accelerated evolution. As if to emphasize her point, the drone simulation team had achieved their highest combat effectiveness score yet, despite their wounds and exhaustion. They moved like a single organism, anticipating and countering threats before they materialized. Jensen turned to Martinez, his crystalline form pulsing with newfound understanding. Your species, you're not just warriors. You're combat itself, eternally evolving, eternally advancing. No, Martins corrected, watching her people demonstrate their relentless nature. We're something far more dangerous. We're what combat creates when it tries to destroy us and fails. Dr. Martinez stood motionless before the quantum scanner's holographic display, her face illuminated by the dancing patterns of human neural activity. Behind her, a team of the galaxy's foremost xenopsychologists watched in stunned silence as the combat simulation unfolded. Subject 7. Status report. She called out, her voice steady despite the unprecedented readings flooding her screens. The Marine in the simulation chamber below was bleeding from 3 wounds, his breathing labored. Yet his voice came through clear and controlled. Target analysis improving, ma'am. Pattern recognition at 130% of baseline. Request permission to continue. The lead xenopsychologist, Dr. Reynolds, shook his head in disbelief. This defies every known model of combat psychology. His cognitive functions should be deteriorating under this level of stress. Martinez enlarged the neural mapping display. Watch this sequence carefully. She highlighted the subject's brain activity as a new wave of combat drones entered the chamber. Standard doctrine says combat stress degrades decision-making, but look at his neural pathways. The assembled scientists leaned forward as Subject 7's brain lit up like a supernova. Regions associated with tactical analysis, spatial awareness, and threat response didn't just activate. They reconfigured, forming new connections in real time. We're calling it combat acceleration, Martins explained. The more intense the threat, the faster humans process combat information. It's like our brains overclock themselves under pressure. Through the observation window, Subject 7 moved with impossible precision. Each action flowed seamlessly into the next, his combat effectiveness visibly improving despite his injuries. He wasn't just fighting the drones, he was predicting their actions, countering strategies they hadn't yet employed. Now watch this, Martins said, inputting new commands. The simulation shifted, introducing environmental hazards. Without hesitation, Subject 7 incorporated them into his tactical approach, using falling debris and electrical discharges as improvised weapons. Dr. Reynolds consulted his datapad. Previous tests showed similar patterns in civilian subjects with no combat training. How is this possible? Martinez pulled up comparison footage. Because it's not training, it's evolutionary programming. The display showed civilians in crisis situations demonstrating the same neural adaptations. Every human carries this potential. Combat just awakens it. The chamber's difficulty increased again. Subject 7's vital signs should have been approaching critical failure, but his neural patterns showed increasing complexity. He had begun anticipating the simulation's random elements, developing counters for attacks before they were launched. The most fascinating aspect, Martins continued, is the persistence of these adaptations. She displayed brain scans from previous test subjects. The neural reconfigurations don't revert after combat ends. Each engagement permanently enhances our combat processing capability. A warning light flashed as Subject 7's heart rate spiked. But instead of degrading his performance, the increased stress triggered another surge of neural adaptation. His movements became even more precise, his tactical responses more innovative. "Computer, analyze combat effectiveness," Martinez commanded. Subject's combat efficiency has increased 200% since simulation start. The AI responded. Neural plasticity continuing to rise. New combat-optimized pathways still forming. Dr. Reynolds stepped back from the display, his professional detachment cracking. "It's not just adaptation," he whispered. "You're literally evolving through combat. Every engagement makes you more lethal." "That's what everyone misses about humans," Martinez agreed, watching Subject 7 systematically dismantle the most advanced combat simulation they could devise. "We don't just learn from combat, we're transformed by it. Each battle reshapes us into more efficient warriors." The simulation finally ended. Subject 7 stood amid the holographic destruction, his wounds seemingly forgotten. His neural scans showed permanent enhancements to his combat processing capabilities. "This is why humanity survives against overwhelming odds," Martinez concluded. "Our enemies assume they're fighting what we are, but they're actually fighting what we're becoming, and we never stop becoming something more dangerous." As the scientists filed out, shaken by their observations, Martinez stayed behind. She watched Subject 7's neural patterns continue to optimize even after the combat ended, knowing she had just shown them something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that didn't just use combat as a means to an end, but as a catalyst for continuous evolution. The darkness within humanity wasn't their capacity for violence, it was their ability to transform violence itself into a path of endless advancement. The observation deck fell silent as Dr. Martinez initiated the combat simulation. Below, 3 human Marines faced off against a Centurion battlewalker, its crystalline armor gleaming under the artificial lights. The council representatives leaned forward, eager to witness humanity's supposed combat evolution in action. "First engagement," Martinez announced, her voice carrying across the deck. "Subject team has no prior experience with this weapon system." The battlewalker opened fire. Its plasma cannons cut through the Marines' cover like paper, forcing them into desperate evasive maneuvers. Their return fire bounced harmlessly off its shields. Within minutes, all 3 Marines were down, simulation markers indicating fatal wounds. The Centurion commander smiled. "Perhaps your theories about human combat evolution were overstated, Doctor." "Reset simulation," Martinez ordered, ignoring the comment. The chamber reconfigured, and the same 3 Marines took their positions. Second engagement. This time, the Marines moved differently. They had analyzed the walker's firing patterns, coordinating their movements to split its attention. They lasted 3 minutes longer, but still fell to its superior firepower. "Again," Martinez commanded. The Marines rose once more, their expressions intensely focused. The third engagement showed another shift in tactics. The team used the walker's plasma discharge against it, timing their movements to make it overheat its own systems. They survived 5 minutes before falling. "Observe their neural patterns," Martinez pointed to the display. "Each defeat isn't just a failure, it's data. They're not just learning the walker's capabilities, they're evolving new ways to counter them." The fourth engagement stretched to 8 minutes. The Marines had begun anticipating the walker's targeting algorithms, moving in patterns that forced it to work against its own programming. They'd transformed their earlier deaths into a combat advantage, using the knowledge gained to exploit previously invisible weaknesses. "Impossible," the Centurion commander muttered as the 5th engagement began. "The battle walker's systems are randomized. They can't predict its actions." "They're not predicting," Martinez corrected. "They're evolving." The Marines moved like water now, each defeat having honed their understanding of combat space and energy weapon dynamics. They'd stopped trying to destroy the walker directly, and instead focused on manipulating its responses. Their neural patterns showed accelerated adaptation, combat algorithms rewriting themselves in real time. During the 6th engagement, something changed. One Marine took a glancing hit, the plasma blast scorching his armor. Instead of retreating, he analyzed the energy dispersion pattern. By the 7th engagement, the team had developed a way to use their own damaged armor plates to reflect the walkers' energy weapons. This is what makes humans unique, Martins explained as the 8th engagement began. Other species see defeat as failure. We see it as evolution in progress. Every loss teaches us new ways to win. The Marines had completely transformed their approach by the 10th engagement. They moved in perfect synchronization, using the walker's power and size against it. Their neural scans showed new combat pathways forming with each exchange, their brains literally rewiring themselves to become more efficient killing machines. On the 12th engagement, they brought down the walker. The observation deck erupted in shocked whispers as the Marines used their evolved understanding of the walker's systems to trigger a cascade failure in its power core. They had turned 2 hours of defeats into a perfect victory. Final analysis, Martins announced, pulling up the combat data. Subject team's neural adaptation rate increased by 300%. They developed countermeasures to previously unknown weapon systems, reverse-engineered crystalline armor vulnerabilities, and evolved new combat doctrines, all from experiencing and analyzing their own deaths. The Centurion commander's crystalline form dimmed. You don't just learn from combat, he realized. You weaponize the very experience of defeat. Now you understand, Martins said quietly. Humanity doesn't just adapt to survive combat. We evolve through it. Every loss makes us stronger. Every defeat teaches us new ways to kill. And we never, ever forget what our enemies teach us. As the Marines exited the simulation chamber, their neural patterns still optimizing combat algorithms, the assembled aliens finally grasped the truth. They weren't watching soldiers train. They were witnessing evolution itself being transformed into a weapon of war. The holographic chamber within the Galactic Council's high-security research wing pulsed with ethereal light as Dr. Martinez prepared her final demonstration. The gathered military leaders from 17 species watched intently as she pulled up the compiled data from months of testing. What you're about to see, Martinez began, her voice carrying the weight of discovery, is the complete formula that makes humans the deadliest fighters in known space. Not our weapons, not our technology, but our fundamental nature as combat evolvers. The main display activated, showing 3 parallel combat simulations. In the first, a lone human runner pursued alien prey across an endless savanna. In the second, a Marine squad faced overwhelming odds against advanced battle machines. In the third, a wounded soldier turned a hopeless last stand into a tactical advantage. The first component, persistence predation. Martins highlighted the runner's neural patterns. We evolved to outlast any prey, to maintain peak performance long after other species collapse. But it's not just physical endurance. Our brains actually optimize under prolonged stress. The runner's display showed 48 hours of continuous pursuit, their cognitive functions improving with each passing hour. The alien observers shifted uncomfortably as they watched the humans' relentless advance. The second component, adaptive intelligence. The Marine squad's simulation took center stage. Unlike species that evolved specific combat adaptations, we developed the ability to turn anything into a weapon. Watch their neural patterns as they encounter new threats. The display showed the Marines analyzing and countering previously unknown enemy capabilities in real time. Their brains literally rewired themselves to process combat information more efficiently with each engagement. But the final component, Martinez continued, enlarging the third simulation, is what truly sets us apart. We call it spiked survival, the uniquely human trait of becoming more dangerous when defeat seems certain. The wounded soldier's neural scans showed impossible patterns. Despite critical injuries, their combat effectiveness increased exponentially as their situation deteriorated. They didn't just fight harder. They evolved new combat solutions with devastating creativity. Now watch what happens when these 3 components synergize. Martinez overlaid the neural patterns from all three scenarios. The resulting display showed something unprecedented: a combat evolution feedback loop. Persistence predation gives us the ability to maintain peak performance indefinitely. Adaptive intelligence lets us evolve new combat solutions in real time. And spite survival ensures that the worse our situation becomes, the faster we evolve. The High Commander of the Meridian Fleet raised an appendage. You're describing an exponential combat evolution system. The more we fight humans, the more dangerous we become. Martinez finished. Every engagement accelerates our evolution. Every defeat teaches us new ways to kill. Every attempt to break us only makes us evolve faster. She brought up comparison data from recent conflicts. Standard military doctrine says that extended combat degrades fighting effectiveness. But for humans, the opposite is true. The longer we fight, the more lethal we become. The display showed human neural adaptation rates increasing with combat duration. What started as tactical learning evolved into fundamental changes in combat processing. Each engagement permanently enhanced their capacity for warfare. This is why conventional military strategy fails against humans, Martinez explained. You're not just fighting what we are, you're fighting what we're becoming. And we never stop becoming something more dangerous. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that didn't just learn from combat, but evolved through it. A race that transformed every defeat into a stepping stone toward deadlier capabilities. The most crucial finding, Martinez concluded, her voice deadly serious, isn't about our current capabilities. It's about our potential. She displayed the projected evolution curves. Each generation of humans shows faster combat adaptation than the last. We're not just deadly because of what we are now. We're deadly because of what we're becoming. As the military leaders filed out, shaken by the revelation, Martinez stayed behind. She watched the simulations play out, knowing she had just shown them something they never expected. A species that had evolved not just to win fights, but to transform combat itself into a catalyst for endless evolution. The ultimate predator formula wasn't a weapon or a tactic. It was humanity's fundamental nature as beings engineered by evolution to become more lethal through the very act of being challenged. The massive combat arena beneath the Galactic Council's research facility hummed with lethal potential. Dr. Martinez watched from the control center as her test subjects, 5 human Marines, checked their basic equipment. Below them, sealed containment units housed the most dangerous warrior breeds known to space. This is madness. Observer Jensen's crystalline form flickered with concern. You're putting them against the evolved combat specialists of 17 worlds, even with their adaptive capabilities. That's exactly what we need to prove. Martinez cut him off, activating the neural monitors. Begin Phase 1. The first containment unit opened, releasing a pair of Nexus blade dancers. Their chrome-plated bodies moved faster than human eyes could track, augmented reflexes pushing the boundaries of physical possibility. The Marines formed a defensive circle, their neural patterns already shifting to process the unprecedented speed of their opponents. The first exchange left 2 humans down, their simulated wounds fatal. But the survivors' brains were adapting, mapping the blade dancers' movement patterns. Neural adaptation rate at 200%. The computer announced. New combat algorithms forming. By the second engagement, the remaining Marines had evolved countermeasures. They didn't try to match the blade dancers' speed. They predicted their attack vectors, using minimal movements to force their opponents into killing zones. Phase 2, Martinez ordered as the last blade dancer fell. The wounded Marines rose, simulation markers reset. The next unit released Meridian warforms, their biological weapons capable of dissolving armor on contact. The Marines' neural scans showed rapid tactical evolution, their brains processing and countering the new threat even as it killed them. They're not just learning, Jensen observed, watching the humans adapt faster with each death. They're incorporating every species' combat advantages into their own fighting style. Phase after phase, the Marines faced the galaxy's ultimate warriors. Vardarian crystal giants, swarm mind assassins, living weapon symbiotes. Each encounter ended in their deaths, but each death made them deadlier. Neural plasticity exceeding all previous records, the computer reported. Combat effectiveness increasing exponentially with each engagement. By the 10th phase, the Marines moved like living weapons themselves. They had evolved counters to speed, strength, and biological warfare. Their neural patterns showed new combat pathways forming continuously, each threat adding to their lethal capabilities. Now, Martinez said quietly, "Watch this." She activated all remaining containment units simultaneously. The arena erupted in chaos as every warrior species attacked at once. The Marines should have been overwhelmed instantly. Instead, their neural patterns exploded with activity, combat evolution accelerating beyond measurable rates. They moved with impossible precision, combining learned techniques from each previous encounter. A blade dancer's speed merged with a crystal giant's power. Swarm mind tactics enhanced by symbiote adaptability. They had become something entirely new, a hybrid of every lethal adaptation they'd faced. By the stars, Jensen whispered as the Marines systematically dismantled the galaxy's deadliest fighters. They're not just surviving. They're evolving beyond anything we imagined, Martinez finished. The neural scans showed cognitive patterns never before seen in any species. The Marines had transcended conventional combat, becoming living embodiments of warfare itself. When the final opponent fell, the 5 humans stood undefeated, their minds permanently altered by the experience. They had faced the best warriors of 17 worlds and absorbed the combat knowledge of each. Final analysis, Martinez announced to the stunned observers. Subject team demonstrates complete tactical adaptation to all known combat forms. They can now anticipate and counter techniques they've never encountered, using pattern recognition evolved through combat itself. Jensen's crystalline form had gone completely still. You've created something beyond weapons, beyond warriors. There, combat evolution incarnate, Martinez said. Every battle makes us stronger. Every defeat teaches us more. And now we know there's no upper limit to how far we can evolve. As the Marines exited the arena, their neural patterns still optimizing combat algorithms, the gathered aliens finally understood. They hadn't just witnessed a demonstration of human fighting ability. They'd watched the birth of something unprecedented, a species that could face the galaxy's deadliest warriors and emerge as something even more lethal. The species trial had proven beyond doubt. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ability to fight. It was their ability to become something more dangerous with every battle they faced. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber had never been so silent. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood before the assembled representatives of every spacefaring civilization, her final report hovering in holographic display behind her. The data told a story that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare forever. Distinguished members of the Council, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her conclusions. After 6 months of intensive research, we've confirmed something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans aren't just another warrior species. We're evolution's answer to combat itself. The main display activated, showing composite data from all their tests. Every species in this chamber evolved specific combat advantages: speed, strength, biological weapons, technological superiority. But humans evolved something far more dangerous: the ability to evolve through combat itself. Martinez highlighted the neural adaptation curves. Each battle rewires our brains for greater combat efficiency. Each defeat teaches us new ways to kill. Each attempted extinction event only accelerates our evolution towards something deadlier. The High Counselor leaned forward, their ancient form radiating concern. You're describing an exponential threat, Doctor. If humans become more dangerous with each engagement, then the only way to stop us is to never start. Martinez finished. Every strategy used against humans eventually makes us stronger. Even this research project, designed to understand our combat capabilities, has taught us new ways to enhance them. She brought up footage from their final tests. We've documented humans adapting to overcome every known combat advantage in the galaxy. Speed, strength, technology. Nothing remains superior once humans have experienced it in battle. The chamber erupted in worried whispers as Martinez continued. But the most crucial finding isn't about our current capabilities. It's about our potential. The display showed generational combat evolution rates. Each new generation of humans shows faster adaptation than the last. We're not just deadly because of what we are. We're deadly because of what we're becoming. A Meridian representative raised their appendage. Surely there must be a biological limit to this evolution. Martinez's expression hardened. We thought so too. But look at these patterns. She highlighted the neural plasticity data. Human combat evolution doesn't follow normal biological constraints. The more we're challenged, the faster we evolve. The closer we come to defeat, the more dangerous we become. The display shifted to show historical battles. Every time humanity faced extinction, we emerged stronger. Every superior force that tried to destroy us became a catalyst for our evolution. We don't just survive against impossible odds, we transcend them. And now, she continued, pulling up the final analysis, we understand why. Humans aren't adapted for combat. We're adapted for combat evolution itself. Every engagement permanently enhances our capabilities. Every defeat teaches lessons that get coded into our very nature. The High Counselor's voice cut through the tense silence. Your recommendation, Doctor. Martinez squared her shoulders. Based on all available data, I recommend classifying humanity as beyond standard military threat categories. We're not warriors, predators, or even living weapons. We're combat evolution incarnate, a species that transforms warfare itself into a path of endless advancement. She highlighted the final projection curves. Any attempt to contain humanity through force will only accelerate our evolution. Any species that wages war against us is effectively weaponizing their own extinction. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had gathered to classify humanity's threat level, only to discover something beyond their comprehension. A species that didn't just fight wars, but evolved through them. Therefore, Martinez concluded, I formally recommend classifying Earth as a restricted world, not to protect humanity from the galaxy, but to protect the galaxy from what humanity will become if forced to fight for survival. As the council moved to vote, Martinez watched their reactions. Some showed fear, others fascination, but all of them finally understood the truth. They weren't dealing with just another powerful species. They were witnessing the birth of something the galaxy had never seen before. Beings engineered by evolution itself to transform combat into a path of infinite advancement. The motion passed unanimously. Earth was classified as the first and only Class Omega restricted world, home to a species too dangerous to fight, too lethal to contain, and too evolved to stop.